Hi there, welcome back to BitFocus. As you have already learned about file handling in our previous session, so you can find it in channel BitFocus. First of all, I should apologize to you all because I have kept you waiting for our new session. So I'm sorry. Today in this session we will learn about exception handling. What is exception? Exceptions are any errors which are generated during software development and can crash a software. Or exceptions can stop running a program if you do not handle it. But how to avoid exceptions? So, the best practice is this: we should handle exceptions. If you do not handle exceptions, exceptions can stop your program, can crash your software. So how to handle exceptions? It is very easy. The syntax is try except. Or if you have coded in other programming languages like Java, C++, C Sharp, you may see that try catch is used here. Try catch. But in Python we have try except. Please try to remember it. Try except. And finally, or else is also used, but they are optional. And we also talk about it later in examples. So now we should go PyCharm. So we should create a new file, alt insert. And we put the name except1. Except1. It means the first file. Okay. Exception handling. Handling. How? For example, I want to do a division. But first of all, I should define some variables, for example a0, b10. So we want to divide b by a, or we want to divide 10 by 0. Dividing a number by 0, it is clear that it gives you an exception or an error, because in mathematics we cannot divide a number by 0. So now we should see the result. Run the file. You see now the red lines. It means there is an exception in your software or in your program. You see 0 division error. 0 division error is the name of your exception. It means you have divided a number by 0. So it is, in fact, this exception has stopped your software, or it causes a crash here. The best practice is we should handle our exception. How? First, try block is a block where you put your code which may cause an exception. For example, and in Python we should consider indentation, otherwise it gives you also error. So now except. What is except? Except is the block where you handle your exception or you avoid the exception. How? For example, we should show a message here. Sorry, a number cannot be divided by 0. So now inside try we have put our code that may cause an exception, but except is where you want to show a message or something else. Now we run again. Now you see the red lines disappeared because now we have handled our exception. So now in fact your program is not crashed, or the exception cannot stop your program. It is the best practice. But also we can put many except here. I mean, we can add as many except blocks as we can or as required. uh, okay, for example, I should put it into comment and have another example. So how, second example, uh, again I should define a variable here, but first I should not define it. I mean, you should see mm, you should see what exception it will cause. Print x. So you see x, it shows that there is an error here because I have not defined yet, so I am printing. Again, you see the red lines here, you see name error. I mean, any exception has its own name, please remember it. The first one was zero division error, but the second one is name error. You see x is not defined. Okay, and now again try and then put indentation, but except name error. I mean, you can also put the name of exception in front of except x is not defined yet. And again another except. I mean, if it is not clear which kind of exception is existing here, we can put several except here. The number of except block, the number, it shows there it may be another exception, not name error. For example, zero division. The number cannot be divided by 0. Or we can say type error. For example, data type cannot match, like this. Else. What is else? I mean, here it is not a condition like if else. Here else is also used with exception handling. It means if there are no exceptions here, so then else is printed, else is executed, sorry. See, for example, printing variable. Sorry, variable. So now, what I mean by this example, I mean we can put as many except blocks as we can. For example, if we see if we want to print an exception or handle an exception, our exception is included or depends on one of them. So now we see x. If x is divided by 0, the second one will be executed. If x has a data type which doesn't match with our program, the third one will be executed. But here, because x is not defined, the first one may be executed. Now we see the result. You see x is not defined yet. Yes, it is right. But we define first, for example, x2. Now we see neither of these exception will be printed here, and the third one else will be executed here because now it is successfully printed. So how? You see, to is printed and print the variable. The variable is printed here. I hope you have understood. So finally, we can also use finally here. What is finally? Finally is a block which depends on none of them. I mean, finally block is always executed if there is exception or not exception. Either there is exception with our program or there is no exception, but it is printed. For example, I'm always printed. So you see there is no exception, but it is printed because it tells you I am always printed. Or if again I put it like the first one, but now it causes an exception. You see, X is not defined yet, but I am always printed. It is always printed. Finally is used, or usage of finally is very useful on that time. For example, you close a database connectivity here, or when you are working with a file but there is an exception, or there may not be any exception, but you want to close the file while you are handling the exception, but you want to close the file here in this area. It is a good practice. But one more thing we should understand, one more thing you should understand from here, that now because we have handled our exception, so now the program is executing. It has not been stopped. But if you do not handle the exception, so on that time you see that your program is crashed, and that's why you cannot reach here. Okay, this is all about exception handling. I hope you have understood. Thank you all.